I'm typing this more for me than anything else. Just a place where I can document the details and try to see if there's a missing link or something I may have missed. It started about 2 months ago, in the middle of a bleak winter. I was on my way home from the late shift at the local supermarket. I made my way down the side roads that led to my house, the vapours in my cold breath catching my attention every so often. I was nearing the last few turns when I saw a figure. He stood at a point between the streets where there weren't any streetlights around. The only thing illuminating this section was the night's moon and stars. I couldn't make out any detail or anything noticeable, other than that he was facing my direction, and completely motionless. At the time I probably thought it wasn't even a living thing, just some shades and shapes that happened to make out the silhouette of a person, which can happen in the misty dew of winter like this one. Even if it was a person, they were probably standing around waiting for the bus or something like that. Anyway, as you can tell, I didn't think much of it and carried on home. The next day, I had another late shift at work, so I started to walk down my usual route in the late afternoon, the setting sun flaring just over the horizon, past the thick blanket of clouds that covered the sky, the familiar old town streets blurring in my mind as any sight that has been seen one too many times. I barely had any thought of the previous night's experience, as nothing from that incident really stood out to be anything of interest. As I passed where I saw the person, I only just had a thought to check over the area to see if the person was here again, or if there was any sign that it was even there at all. I didn't look long, but nothing noticeable stood out, so I carried on to work where I'd be working until the late evening again. After my shift ended, I made my way home with some simple shopping in hand. As usual, it was dire cold, so I made my pace brisk with the intention of making it home as soon as possible, to settle down with a hot drink and sleep my tiring night away. I came across the same unlit section of the road where I saw the shape before, not expecting anything to be out of the ordinary until I saw him again. Except this time, he was a little bit closer. I stared at him, not sure what I was hoping would happen. What unsettled me was the fact that he wasn't just standing still, but pretty much almost unmoving. There wasn't any sense of him breathing. He was static. Usually, when you see a dark figure, the last thing you want is for it to come towards you, let alone move, but I guess I was hoping it would just move even just an inch in any human way, to be sure that what I was looking at was okay. It unsettled me much too much to approach him, so I just briskly walked along the other side of the road home to avoid any confrontation. The next day or two, things were pretty mellow. My shifts were during the day, and my walk home was also during the day, which is what I was supposed to be contracted for at work. And during this brief period, I never saw any sign of the person, so I put the incident behind me once again and moved on. But, as my luck would dictate, I was called in on more evening shifts. In the shop, things were always busier in the evening, as this was becoming more and more people's preferred time for shopping. Also, due to economic reasons, a lot of the temporary staff had been let go recently, meaning they needed the remaining team to work on varied times. After a particularly stressful evening shift, I made my way home, going my usual route in a groggy manner. I was nearing the end of the journey when I crossed into the dark part of the road, and I saw him again. He wasn't just off to the side anymore, but he was noticeably closer, and worst of all, standing in the middle of the road. This posed a big problem for me, because that meant I would have to get within a few feet of this weirdo to get past him, and I couldn't handle that thought, so I backtracked and went through an alternate, more well-lit route. I added about 10 minutes to the journey, but it was a lot safer, and it also meant I could get to avoid the stranger. It was worth every extra second. To avoid any hassle, I used that route every evening shift from then on. It meant I would avoid the person and get some extra exercise, which I felt I needed anyway. So it wasn't that much of a bother. It wasn't until a few days later, when I was finally beginning to think that I wouldn't see the person ever again, that the turning point happened. I came home, late as usual due to the longer route home. I placed my bags in the kitchen and settled down. I didn't feel like doing anything, so I immediately started to get ready for bed, to sleep the tiredness right out of me. I changed out of my work clothes, brushed my teeth, and went round the house, turning off all the lights. When I got to the last one in the dining room before I went upstairs to bed, I flicked it off, and as I turned around, I caught the glimpse of a figure down the end of my garden. It was very dark outside, but my garden is considerably small, so I knew the layout very well, and I definitely knew I saw something there that did not belong. My hand was still on the switch, so I instinctively turned it back on. Nothing. I stared for what seemed like a long time. In reality, it was only a couple of minutes, but to me it felt like hours due to the tension in the air. After I was satisfied, theorizing that he must have run at the sight of me turning the light back on, I turned it off again. He was there, this time closer. What was I to do? Someone reading would probably shout, "Call the police," but really, what are they going to do? Arrest him for freaking me out? I'm pretty sure that's not a crime, and technically there is a section in my garden that is classed as a public path, so he's by definition not trespassing. So I did what I could do. I made sure the back door and the front door were locked. I even barricaded my room, just in case he tried to get in. Sleep didn't meet me at all that night. The day after was my day off, so I took full advantage of this by sleeping through the whole day. I was exhausted, and who wouldn't be? When I woke up, I didn't have much daylight in order to do chores. And most places were either closed or just about to close. So I stayed in and did the usual thing most people do at night. Watched movies, played games, and generally browsed the internet. After a while of this, I wanted something to cheer me up, so I went on Netflix and started watching some random family sitcoms. Very instant humour and good wholesome values were just what I needed at a stressful point like this. Halfway through the first series of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I was thirsty and a bit hungry, so I went downstairs for a snack. I pulled out a can of Pepsi in the fridge and some more popcorn that I never really got round to eating from my cupboard. And as I was about to ascend my stairs, I turned off the light. Curious after last night's events, I humoured myself. I walked up to the window facing the garden and peeked outside. There he was, just standing there, motionless as always. I couldn't believe it. I was more dumbfounded than anything, simply confused as to why this person was stalking me. I rushed back to the light switch, turned it back on, and jolted back to the window in hopes of seeing who this person was. Whether it was someone I know playing a prank or a well-known serial killer. It didn't bother me at this point. I just wanted to know. But even while I was dashing towards the window, not too far away from the light switch, he was gone. I didn't know how to feel, because what was always happening was not adding up. It wasn't until I turned the light off in frustration that I made my first startling discovery. It was the lights. It was again there, and closer, only a few feet away from my window. Out of sheer fear, I turned the light back on and proceeded around my house, reaching my hand around dark corners and turning on all the lights. I made sure never to turn them off from then on, and after that, things were fine, for a while. The following week, I made sure to only travel along well-lit roads and never cross into any places of darkness. Doing this, I managed to revert partially back to a normal life. My eating started to become more regular. I was actually managing to start to sleep at night. Everything was incident-free until one evening, after another lazy day of Netflix and junk food. I went downstairs to refresh my soda supply in the kitchen. To keep out the cold from the kitchen to the rest of my house, I closed the door. I opened my fridge, grabbed a few cans, and just as I closed the fridge, the kitchen light bulb blew. My head turned to the bulb by instinct, but looking at it, I knew what this meant. My attention was then immediately taken to the other end of the kitchen. There he was, the figure, only a few feet away. He was no longer lurking outside my house, but he appeared inside. I could actually see details now. He stood there, rigid as ever. His face bore the contours of age on his skin. His clothes were no different, being meekly black rags tattered around his body. In the dark, I couldn't see his eyes, but I knew they were focused purely on me. I noticed only one of his arms was down at his side. The other hand's index finger was pushed against his lips, like one is trying to shush someone. Other than being able to see him more clearly now, that there wasn't any walls or windows between us, I could now hear him, heavy breathing with deep grunts, like an animal excited for the kill. All this information sank in between me and the time it took for me to panic and open the fridge door, only for the meat bulb to barely illuminate the kitchen. The cold air from the freshly opened fridge brushed my face as I turned back to see him no longer there. It took one more similar instant like this for me to go full-blown paranoid. I was walking through the dining room to the kitchen when the bulb went. This took away my trust of all my rooms except my bedroom. This time, he appeared so close that I could feel his breath roll off my skin. The smell was so putrid that when it hit my sinuses, it didn't take long for me to flinch backwards and throw up. I turned around and scattered towards the door, reaching in a panic and almost pulling the thing off its hinges to get it open. The luminescence from the other room soon filled most of the dining room, and with it the apparition left. I've done some more research in the back end of the internet describing what's been happening. Hypothetical situations, of course, and the only similarity related lore is one of the Abstergo, or the Abstergo man. A myth of a fallen angel that was condemned by the gods to wander the earth in search of the perfect person. If the person he chooses was perfect, then he would be free and allowed back into heaven. It seems he didn't get a good deal, as to find a perfect person is not an easy task. I can imagine it is unknown what he does to anyone who doesn't fit this criteria, but I have a feeling I might find out, as the last time he appeared, he was within breathing distance. I'm currently in my room with the lights on, and as a precaution, a dozen lamps scattered around the place, all turned on. The TV is also on, and muted purely for the screen light, and my computer monitor as well. It's hot as hell in here, but it's a small price to pay for the security it offers. The door is barricaded, so nothing can get in and out of here. The only exception that I leave is around midday, when the sun is at its brightest, to resupply food and water. I haven't been to work in days either, and I've ignored all calls coming through and people knocking on my door. What is there to tell them? No one will believe me, and even if they did, they can't help me. All I can do for now is survive while I research more into this legend. There are a lot of smart kids out there who know a lot about the old days. I've even found a subsection of the small forum dedicated to the Abstergo man and have some pretty interesting contacts from there. I've sent some emails to them and I'm waiting for some replies. So until then, all I have to do is survive.